So this video you can go watch on our YouTube channel. It's pretty good. And it's had the same effect. People have talked about it in emails to me, like random emails I've gotten. So that is what I'm going for, is that memorability. And that's what we did with this particular story. So another story, because, you know, sometimes, I don't know about you, but like this is a huge life pivot, right? Going from anti-AI to pro-AI. Maybe you don't have something that recent. Maybe you do. But if you don't, then conversations is where I pull some of the absolute best stories. And also what I want to go for is like that dramatic effect. What are some stories that will really get people thinking? And I got a total compliment on this particular story called It's Not Luck. And the compliment was, I am frightened. I'm like, okay, this story has done its job. If you frighten someone, if you shock someone, they're going to remember you. So that was my goal. We did it. But the story for this one was It's Not Luck. And the story was all about how, unfortunately, someone that I knew for years, she also ran a writing business. She had to close her entire business down. And the universe had other plans with the arrival of ChatGPT. And the impact was harder than any of us anticipated. You're so lucky to get out when you did. So when she sent me that message, we were just talking, right? So here I am thinking, right? And that's the thing. If you were always thinking in terms of creator, not consumer, like for me, I could have just gotten back to that message, been done with my day, right? Okay. Close the message inbox, but no, how can we take these messages and think about ways to tell stories from them? That's our marketing. So conversations with clients, I'll tell you, every conversation is opportunity for a story. Like I fully believe that, because when you start thinking differently and you have these conversations, you can start looking for these stories to tell. And that's pretty powerful. So whenever this person told me the story, because I've been training my brain like this for a while. So whenever I talk to people, I'm always thinking about creating content. So the first thing I did was I made a meme, and the meme is Steve Carroll here, and he's looking pretty lonely and sad. And the meme text says, when you realize you should have adapted to AI instead of selling human content writing. So that was the thought that I thought as soon as we talked, was there's a way you could have avoided this whole path, right? If you pivoted, if you didn't let fear, if you didn't just sit by the wayside. So that ruffles some feathers, right? That's a little bit painful. There's some pain involved. But this is such a great story to tell, because other people that aren't there yet, their business hasn't failed yet, like we can help them completely avoid that failure if we tell the story and they start thinking differently too. So that was my goal, is okay, oops, this is really sucky. So how do we avoid it? How do I help other people in my network? I have tons of copywriters that I know. It's time to pivot. It's time to see how can we use AI in that process. So that was a story that's going on here. And then again, we're ending in the middle. It's not at the end, because you want to think about the story structure, right? Structure is critical. And again, I'll template this so you actually have it after the call in Slack. But the main point that I shared is it appears in the middle, and it's fortune doesn't favor the lucky, it favors the bold. So whenever you're talking with clients, whenever you're having these conversations, or you're scrolling Twitter, you're scrolling LinkedIn, what's your point? What's your belief on that topic? When I saw Tim's story, I'm like, that's a story I could have retold. And I could have talked about how we had a client that was trying to tell, they were actually a potential client of ours, so the reverse situation. And they were trying to tell me to bank everything on Facebook pages. They said Facebook pages would be the next thing. Everyone would be ditching their website. This is 8 years ago. If I listened to that advice, dear, not good. That's a great story. So whenever I saw Tim's post, that inspired me to think of other situations that have almost crumbled my own business. Bad advice I've seen that had crumbled somebody else's business. So whenever you're scrolling social and you're having messages and you're talking to clients, what's your point? So for me, and I actually told her this as nicely as possible, I literally told her, I don't believe I'm lucky. I believe that I chose to pivot at the right time, and anyone can do that too. It's not about luck. So that was my belief. So a lot of these stories are definitely going to come from your particular beliefs about how you do business, life in general, as it relates to what you do. And so like really stand on those, right? I cannot say that enough. Stand on those. It creates so much memorability and it unites your audience to you unlike anything else. And especially if there's controversy involved, because people, they will die on a hill. They will die on a hill, plant their flag and say, here is where I'm standing. And if you are the first one to plant the flag that they also carry, they have the same belief, they're going to follow you up that mountain as fast as they can. Something that I'm doing, because I've seen after over 20 issues now, I've seen that story have such a compelling effect. Here's the pivot we're going to do starting this Friday. So I developed something called the Ask Julia column. And you ever seen, like, for example, the Cosmopolitan magazines did this, and it was dating advice, right? It was like, ask this woman and you would get dating advice, and you would read something every week where she answered somebody. So that was the model for this, but it was also based on just how well these personal stories are going. And how do you get those personal stories? You generate more questions. You get people to ask you the right questions. You talk to more people, ideally your clients, because that's when it all relates. So we have the opportunity to get some great questions because we launched a community. And in this community called Scalers, it's amazing. We're actually hosting it in an app called Heartbeat. I'll share it. I'll show it to you for a second. So this community comes free with our software. So people get access to this community. It has courses. It's just loaded with tons of value. So I mean, look at this, right? This person is tagging me based on content she's watching that we're putting out. And she has this great question. And so I'm like, there's my story, but there's something else. What if we took this story, which has had a lot of success, and we make a reoccurring column inside of the newsletter? So that's the next step of this for me, based on just how well that particular format has done, where it's that opening story that people are mentioning, that people are sharing, they're forwarding the newsletter. Because of that, we get more eyeballs on it because of that. So I'm capitalizing on it, and I'm inviting people to ask more questions. So that's something that we're just doing with the future of this, is we're definitely going to reinforce more questions, more stories.